Hello, this is EJK, and this is game number 2 between Deer and Byun in the semifinals of GSL Season 2. I made the mistake of thinking it was Season 3 because I didn't think there were any more GSLs for the year, and I thought like Zest, Dark, and Stats won it, but I think I'm getting one of them mixed up with SSL. So this is Season 2, this is the semifinals. So, in the first game, it was a fairly straight up macro game. Byun just made what I would call an executionary error, where your strategy and decision making is correct, but you physically don't follow through with it for whatever reason. In this game, however, Byun decides to go for a different kind of build. Now, it's impossible to tell without directly asking the players and the players that these guys practiced with, but essentially the reasoning behind going for a Cloak Banshee build on Byun's side and Deer going for a Phoenix build with and skipping an Oracle has a lot to do with mind games. Both players will no doubt have studied each other's VODs, especially on each map, and so beyond switching it up from just a standard Widowmine drop opener that he normally does, and Deer's Oracle Triple Adept opener as well, Deer decides to not make any detection on purpose, and the idea behind making all these Phoenixes is having enough Phoenixes to be able to lift up a Widowmine if the Terran player does decide to do a Widowmine drop, so that the Protoss player would not need any detection. Now, prolonged detection is another thing. The Oracle obviously providing only short bursts of detection while it has energy for it. A big thing that to note here is neither player is scouting each other, so they're both very comfortable with the builds that they've thought up. Byun's kind of first scout is going to be this Cloak Banshee, whereas Deer's first scout, well, he hasn't even scouted across the map since that initial probe scout, not even sending an adept out. So Deer has no idea what Byun is doing, but at the same time thinks he has a good idea of what Byun is doing. So this catches Deer off really off guard. I guess the only saving grace for Deer was that he did build his robotics facility before third base, so he was trying to play fairly safe, and he didn't try to cut too many corners. He just wanted to build up a higher Phoenix count and eventually do a +1 adept Phoenix timing. Unfortunately, this just caught him very off guard. I think even if Deer had gone for an Oracle, he would have you can either like leave the Oracle at home, or you can send the Oracle out, or you can make a Phoenix and then an Oracle, so the Oracle is just there purely for detection. And I'm not really sure about Deer's decision making on why he chose to do this kind of build, but on the other hand, it's an excellent foresight for Byun for deciding to do this type of build. And now Byun has a significant advantage. And the rest of the game is fairly straightforward from here. Byun, though, is just, he very clearly shows us what his decision-making process is, and he doesn't try to do anything to capitalize on his advantage. He's waiting for Stim Combat Shield Engineering Bay timing, and he decides not to attack until before that, or he decides not to attack before that, and instead just waits, even though he has a pretty large advantage. Deer is only on, I believe, 2 or 3 gateways. There might be a third one in the natural, and he has a robotics facility and a bunch of Phoenixes. While these units are good against non-stim type armies, As soon as stim finishes, Deer's units get significantly weaker. As soon as combat shields finishes and +1 finishes, Deer's army only keeps deteriorating in army value. Now Deer's trying to get some damage done with the Phoenixes. This is a good time for him to move out. He knows that Byun can't be out on the map until he has, or he can't be doing any like big pressure until he has stim and combat shields, which he does have now. So Deer was able to get a little bit of scouting information off on how big Byun's army is. Unfortunately, that doesn't really matter. Deer doesn't have the money to make both adepts, saturate his third base, or to build additional pylons so that the mothership core can pylon overcharge. If Deer was able to set up a couple pylons here, I think he might have been able to hold for a little bit longer, but then Byun could have he can just rotate around from this area to the left side of the third base, and Deer probably still would have died. So Byun hitting a very clear timing. I'm just going to go back a little bit. So his first 2 medevacs are out. He doesn't have stim finished and combat shields and +1 done quite yet. This is just setting up the push. It's important to take this watchtower, or if you're going to be pushing towards the rocks on the natural area side of the Protoss player, you want to take the right-hand watchtower to set up a forward positioning for your army. And we see on the production tab, as soon as it's shown again, that Deer didn't really change anything up about his build. He just accepted the fact that he was down a lot of workers, and as a result, all of his timings were very delayed. That being very evident because the glaive upgrade, I don't know why they're not going to the production tab again. But the glaive upgrade, there we go. So glaive and +1 attack are nowhere near done for this push of Byun. And so in a normal game, what wouldn't have been a game ender, this standard timing instead is able to just end the game because all of Deer's tech is just completely delayed because he had to resaturate his probes. We see Deer is ahead by 6 workers now, but that's because he was constantly chronoing out probes. He had to cut gateway units, he had to cut his gateway tech as well, and he just didn't have enough to survive. GG.